Today I want to talk about Uranus in Taurus because Uranus stations direct in Taurus today, and I want to talk about Uranus in Taurus not as an abstract transit, but as something that is actively working on our bodies, on our values, and our sense of belonging. Because symbolically, Uranus in Taurus describes the work of coherence, being forced back into the most tangible layers of our lives, our body, our resources, our sense of safety, and the quiet question of, am I allowed to exist as I am? So Uranus represents rupture, awakening, and truth that can no longer be suppressed, right? And Taurus represents stability, embodiment, and the capacity to inhabit our lives without bracing, without tension. So when Uranus moves through Taurus, coherence can no longer be maintained through performance or adaptation or inherited scripts. Any sense of safety that isn't true to the body begins to fracture. And that fracture, by the way, these ruptures are not failures, they are information. Welcome to my channel. I'm Yolanda. If you're new here, I use astrology as a language for self-understanding, embodiment, and meaning-making. My work sits at the intersection of astrology, psychology, myth, spirituality, and the nervous system to help you live your life more fully and more authentically, more honestly. Now, lately, I've been spending a lot of time speaking more about coherence and self-belonging and what it actually means to feel stable in a time of great change. Now, this isn't a shift away from astrology, by the way. It's a deepening of what astrology has always been pointing toward. So if you're interested in living your chart rather than performing it, then you are in the right place. Okay, so let's get back to this idea of Uranus as coherence by beginning to look at what incoherence looks like in real life. Right, so what is incoherence? This transit is going to expose, or has already exposed, but we're now heading towards this critical part in your chart, the Taurus part of your chart, because Uranus is on his way out now, is in the last degrees of Taurus. Now, this transit is going to expose where stability has been borrowed. So your idea, your sense of stability, where you've actually borrowed the sense of stability rather than actually inhabited safety or stability. This is security that has been built through people pleasing, over functioning, right? For example, being very productive, which is actually toxic productivity, very, very busy, or seeking external validation rather than self-belonging. I promise you I'm going to cover all these terms in this video. Right, so incoherence often shows up as anxiety. And because we're dealing here with Taurus, it's going to show up as anxiety around money, food, work, but also the body itself. Okay? Not because these areas are actually the problem. It may be that you have very legitimate, real problems around money and food, sustenance, work, and even health issues. But it's also because the nervous system registers contradiction in those areas. Now, when you're living in a way that your body can't agree with, your body speaks first, right? Your body is the first to say, here's a problem. It's not your mind. Your mind does not like ring the bell and say, oh, you are not being coherent here. You are not being true to yourself. It's the body that alerts you to the fact that you are being dishonest, incoherent. Okay, that what you're saying and what you're doing are not lining up. They don't match. Right. I'm going to give you a quick example because it's an example that I speak about. Well, it comes up almost weekly, and it's incoherence around money. So take, for example, let's say you doing everything right. You save, you plan, you're very careful with your money. Yet there's this persistent background anxiety about money that never seems to resolve. Even as your numbers improve, you keep adding an extra zero, right, to the end of your checks, or your bank account is growing, your body doesn't seem to relax. Now, this is in incoherence because the nervous system is responding not to your current circumstances, but to earlier experiences of scarcity or unpredictability. So the body is still living inside an old story, while the mind is trying to enforce control through financial behavior, right? So money becomes the stand-in for safety rather than a resource that supports your life. Incoherence around money is really about not having enough. It's about earning, saving, or protecting in ways that your body can't agree with. Right. So that was an example of incoherence. Now, what do I mean by coherence? Coherence is not about like holding everything together, like being able to juggle all these different parts and areas of your life beautifully, but it is about belonging to yourself. What do I mean? What do I mean by belonging to yourself? Self-belonging looks like agreement between your body, your values, and your choices. Let me see if I can say that another way. It isn't about confidence. It isn't about self-improvement. It's this felt sense that you are no longer in opposition to your own life. So you belong to yourself. Here are 3 simple ways to begin returning to yourself. Number 1, let your body vote first. So before you say yes to anything, before you commit, does your breath drop or does it tighten? Do your shoulders soften or do they brace? Do you feel the tension here? Because self-belonging begins when the body gets a vote in the decisions that affect it. You don't need certainty. You need enough internal agreement that your nervous system isn't overridden. A yes that costs your body is not consent. It's endurance. 2, name the truth without forcing change. So you belong to yourself the moment you stop arguing with your own experience. What does that look like? What do I mean by that? It means that you quietly name things as you experience them very truthfully. Like you can actually say to yourself, this isn't working. I want something different. When you say out loud, when you actually speak your truth to yourself, then you restore coherence before action is possible. Self-belonging doesn't require immediate like movement or action. What it does require is honesty. The nervous system relaxes when reality is acknowledged without pressure. 3, choose what lets you stay inhabited. Now, when faced with options, you mustn't ask yourself, what should I do? That's what we've been trained to say. This is how we've been trained to move through the world. What should I do? What should I do? What you should say is, or what you should ask yourself is, what allows me to remain present in my own life? Does this, whatever this opportunity is, whatever comes to you, this thing, does it actually allow me to remain present in my life? Self-belonging grows through choices that don't require you to disassociate or give up parts of yourself or betray yourself. Over time, your system learns that it doesn't have to shout to be heard. You know, your body doesn't have to react in a violent manner. It doesn't have to fall apart. It doesn't have to break down because it believes in you. Uranus is going to awaken the truth if he hasn't already, and Taurus is helping you integrate it. If this resonated with you, you are welcome to share. I'd love to know what shifted in your body as you listened.